Non-religious people, what is your favorite god and why? Bathila. In Tagalog mythology, he created the world and left us to our own devices. The creator has godly shit to do and can't be bothered with us lesser beings. Now that is an all-powerful being I can understand. Anoia, goddess of volcanoes and things stuck in drawers. Odin, he sacrificed an eye and hung on a tree to gain knowledge. He has pet ravens that bring him news, a spear that never misses, and an 8-legged horse. Also helps Harry Dresden. Honorable mention, Tyr sacrificed his hand to bind Fenrir, is Thor's contemporary / brother, potentially, depends on the source. He could also be the son of the Jotun giant, Hymir. Edit, thank you for all the awards. Eris, aka Discordia, she's the Greek goddess of chaos and discord. When Zeus threw a raging party but didn't invite Eris, she showed up anyway. She threw a solid gold apple, with the words "to the prettiest" inscribed on it, into the room, and 3 Greek goddesses started catfighting over it. Freya, of Norse mythology, she was in charge of love, fertility, battle, and death. She could be badass and feminine all at the same time. Also, she had a chariot pulled by cats. I love Egyptian mythology and cuts so base that is an obvious choice. I also really like how, according to their mythology, the goddess Isis invented mummification in order to reunite her brother's husband's body, Osiris. Hestia, she doesn't meddle or succumb to vanity or start wars over dumb shit or take the form of animals to sleep around. She isn't an obvious favorite or anyone's hero. No one fears her wrath. There are no surviving myths dedicated to her, but she's a constant, vital presence in everyday life and was unobtrusively worshipped by everyone in ancient Greece. She maintains the hearth for all humanity and is present in every home. Ancient artwork suggests that, over time, her honored position as the 12th Olympian was transferred to Dionysus. Scholars have theorized that perhaps she willingly gave up her seat to avoid conflict or and maintain the peace. I always identified with her a lot. The Irish triple goddess, Bridget. Back when I was Catholic, I was confirmed using Saint Bridget's name. The goddess was actually Christianized from the old religion. I loved religious syncretism. Fortuna, the Roman goddess of luck. I read a book about ancient Romans. Supposedly you were supposed to choose a personal god to guide you through life. There was one emperor, I forget who, that chose Fortuna, and he was one of the only ones to make it to old age and lived a relatively unscandalous life compared to the rest. It's hard to choose. I like a lot of Norse gods. They seem so human, and in It's Always Sunny in AskReddit sort of sense. To cheer someone up, Loki tied his balls to a goat's beard. A giant stole Thor's hammer, and demanded Freya to be his bride in exchange. Freya was having none of it, so Thor went out in drag and pretended to be Freya, then killed every giant at the wedding feast as soon as he got his hands on Mjolnir again. Really, if you even say "Hey, look, a giant" too loud, there's a chance Thor will show up ready to kill. Odin stole magic mead that grants the gift of poetry by drinking it up, then vomiting it up when he got back to AskReddit. Anyone that is a good poet or songwriter got their gifts from this mead. Bad poetry comes from the mead that came out his other end. Hermes. So I accidentally found myself worshipping Hermes because it became a habit. I'd see a pile of stones on a trail and add one to it. The name Hermes actually comes from Hermes, the pile of stones marking trails and borders, which is why Hermes is the god of trails, borders, commerce and travelers. So I started adding a stone to them and I'd say "Keep me safe Hermes" as passing comment, and after months of doing it, a ritual. It's been going so long now that I have a small statue of him with train tickets from the subways I've been to, and I call my car my Caduceus. He also has a massive dong and I can relate. Thoth. He may not be as flashy as some of the other gods on this list, but he's the ultimate scribe and scholar, a god of knowledge and of writing, who gave writing to mankind. I figure he'd be happy with the life of learning that I've led. Shiva, probably, from Hindu mythology. He's supposed to be a god of gods because the other gods look up to him. Plus he's also the god of destruction who incinerated 3 planets after firing a single arrow. I mean, I dunno, but that sounds pretty badass. Edit, changed Indian to Hindu in the first line. Thanks for pointing it out, guys. Hades, or Artemis. Hades because he gets a bad rap and was actually a pretty chill dude who just let his wife handle the dirty shit, and Artemis because asexual hunter goddess of badassery that wasn't common to see in that time. Freya, she was the Norse goddess of love, beauty, fertility, sex, and warmth. She rode in a carriage pulled by black cats and did whatever, and whoever, she wanted. Her exploits rival any god out there. She had a good time, but she also exhibited great compassion in choosing half of the fallen soldiers to go to Valhalla. When she couldn't find her husband, Odin, she wept tears that turned to gold if they fell on land and amber if they fell in the ocean. The Hindu goddess Kali, she's just a total bad bitch, divine femininity, cutting off evil dudes' heads left and right. Inspired the Rolling Stones' tongue logo, and the Beatles centered a plot to one of their movies around the cult of her followers. People seem to vaguely understand that Hindus believe in reincarnation, but they don't believe reincarnation is forever. They believe you're reincarnated, learning lessons each life, and when you finally get it, you join Brahman. I forget exactly what Brahman manages or does as a god or supernatural non-god entity, but the point is that people who achieve spiritual enlightenment have finished their journey when they leave this earth, and they join one another in the beyond, becoming one. Maybe existence, more than even the concept of this god. I like the conclusions you might draw from this concept that you wouldn't in Christianity. If someone evil wrongs you in Christianity, you're not even supposed to wish them a nice long stay in hell. But you can imagine it. They've crossed the moral event horizon from your point of view, and no virtue will ever return. If you're wronged by someone evil in Buddhism, you can rest assured that they have a lot left to learn, and their next few or few thousand lives will be humbling, but that they're capable of redemption, and that it's not your job to visit their fate on them, even if you can reject them and their evil. Also, if someone has a character flaw they can't get past, maybe that's a lesson they can learn in a subsequent life. You can accept their flaw and tolerate it without enabling it, and just let them live their best life. Seems a lot better than gay conversion therapy. Good concept. People have modernized the myth in order to give her more agency. It's hardly something abnormal, as it's happened to various myths for centuries and will happen for centuries still. Millennia from now we're going to have scholars arguing the veracity of these changes, just as they do now with the number of changes to Greek myth that have happened both during and after the era of the Greeks. Though really, myths are meant to speak to us. So if a more modernized version of a myth speaks to someone, then who are we to judge? Definitely the Judeo-Christian God. He damned an entire species to pain, suffering, and death just because 2 people disobeyed him once, and he flooded the planet because he didn't like what people were doing with the free will that he gave them. That's the type of petty chaotic energy that I find the most entertaining. Baphomet, the symbolization of equilibrium of opposites, is really neat, and I love how the imagery is very representative of that symbolism. Plus, people think it is satanic, so it is fun to watch people get wide-eyed when I mention Baphomet just on that last statement. That is one of the more interesting things about religions and mythology. In every culture you will find symbols that represent something that isn't inherently good, bad, and in another it's very much bad news. Not that I know much about Baphomet, but this seems like a prime example. Another is how popular culture has driven basically all underworld, death gods as bad because of the very clear imagery of death. Sometimes, they just want to make sure you get to the afterlife okay, like a guiding protector. I really love the ruler of fairies, or the fairy queen, in fictional works. There are many fairy tales, but they also appear in modern novels and fictional works, such as the Dresden Files. Queen Mab is characterized as the Queen of Air and Darkness, ruler of the Court of Winter, and her fairies are associated with rot, death, and winter. Queen Titania is the Queen of Summer. She and her fairies are connected with growth, rebirth, and summer. I like how they represent natural processes, but also the supernatural fairy logic of being able to trade, bargain for intangibles such as the ability to whistle, the color of your eyes, or a bright summer's day when you were 12. They are alien and unknowable, but there is a logic and a code that can be learned. If you learn of how to follow these strange rules, you can bargain or even use them to your advantage. Gotta go old school. Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of love and war that became Ishtar to the Assyrians, Astarte to the Canaanites, Ashtaroth to the Semitic, and Aphrodite to the Greeks, and influenced another half a dozen goddess mythologies throughout the ancient world, the Hindu Durga, Anina and Danina to the Iberians, Dali to the Georgians, and even early Christians with the Virgin Mary and the Jews with the unnamed Queen of Heaven. Prometheus, he's one of the titans in Greek mythology. When I heard his story, I was surprised at how ungodlike he was. He actually cared for his creation and prioritized gaining knowledge over worshipping some deity. He tricked Zeus for the benefits of humanity, stole fire for humans despite Zeus not allowing humans to have fire anymore. Zeus found out and sentenced him to be tied to a rock where his liver would be eaten by a vulture. He would heal every night only to be tortured again. To top it all off, Zeus offered freedom in exchange. He would hide the knowledge of fire from humans. Without hesitation he refused, despite being an atheist and not actually believing he exists. He has been my go-to god to ask for help in times of desperation and when I just feel lonely, especially when flying and the plane shakes a little. I also use his sacrifice to get myself motivated. For those of you who's wondering what happened to Prometheus next, when Hercules was doing his 12 labors, one of those labors was to kill the vulture that is the same vulture that was in charge of torturing Prometheus. Hercules killed the vulture and decided to just set Prometheus free. I'm gonna throw Pachamama out there, because so far it has been described to me essentially as Mother Nature or at least something like that. She sounds like the sort of god I can get behind. I found out about this on my travels through Peru. We visited various ruins from Incan and pre-Incan temples and other structures. Let me see what I can dig up on this right now. Pachamama is a goddess revered by the indigenous peoples of the Andes. She is also known as the Earth, Time Mother. In Inca mythology, Pachamama is a fertility goddess who presides over planting and harvesting, embodies the mountains, and causes earthquakes. She is also an ever-present and independent deity who has her own creative power to sustain life on this earth. Her shrines are hallowed rocks, or the boles of legendary trees, and artists envision her as an adult female bearing harvests of potatoes and coca leaves. The four cosmological Quechua principles, water, earth, sun, and moon, claim Pachamama as their prime origin. Priests sacrifice offerings of llamas, kiwi, guinea pigs, little children, the Kapakaka ritual, and elaborate, miniature, burned garments to her. Okay, so basically she's awesome, but every once in a while you might have to sacrifice some small children. A small price to pay for the perfect god. Not a favorite god, but I respect Hinduism a lot. Actually no, that's confusing. I respect Sanatana Dharma a lot. You see, modern Hinduism isn't what Hinduism was ever supposed to be. Hinduism was the religion of freedom. No one was ever asked to worship any god or you go to hell or anything like that. They openly accepted gays and trans people, and the only way to get to heaven was to lead a virtuous life. Hinduism also respected women. Heck, entire wars were fought because someone disrespected their wife. And even the good guys in many Hindu epics did their time in hell. We can have a longer discussion on current state of Hinduism if anyone is interested. I mean, I'm Christian, but I get really caught up in studying Aztec lore and gods. Like Quetzalcoatl, as the morning and evening star, Quetzalcoatl was the symbol of death and resurrection. With his twins Olotl, a dog-headed god, he was said to have descended to the underground hell of Mictlan to gather the bones of the ancient dead. Quetzalcoatl was banished from Tula after committing transgressions while under the influence of a rival. During his exile, he embarked upon an epic journey through southern Mexico, where he visited many independent kingdoms. A loose confederacy of royal families from across Mexico embraced Quetzalcoatl as their patron deity and dynastic founder, united by his cult. Inspired by Quetzalcoatl's association with commerce, this diverse, multilingual population cultivated vast trade networks that facilitated the exchange of materials and ideas across great distances, resulting in cultural developments such as an international art style and a pictographic writing system that brought together disparate communities of Mesoamerica. Antnis, the deified lover of Hadrian, he is the third most known statue subject. Of all Roman statues of a formerly living person, we have the most of Augustus, second most of Hadrian, and third most are of him. If you've been to a Greco-Roman section in an art museum, you've probably seen a statue of him. How did he die? He drowned. Why? We don't know. An accident, suicide, a sacrifice? No idea really. We know very little about him as a person. He's very much an enigma, but he also died as a young man and was then worshipped, and so I like him because if I pray to him I can imagine him just being like, fuck if I know. Hadrian and I didn't exactly discuss this part of my afterlife. I can't help you with your problem, and if I was a god I'd be about that clueless too, so I can respect it. I like some of the wild Hindu gods, but my favorites are Hanuman and Ganesh, the Hindu monkey god and the elephant-headed god. Hanuman is the companion to Rama and is the patron god of martial arts such as wrestling and acrobatics and looks after the military. I think Monkey from Monkey may be a derivative god as he has a similar personality. I love the story where he was sent to a mountain to find some herbs to heal someone and couldn't find the herbs, so he bought the whole mountain back. Ganesh has an elephant's head but didn't always. He was the son of Parvati and Shiva and had a falling out with his dad who cut off his head. He then felt bad, so he got himself an elephant head and popped it on him. I like that he also hangs out with a rat. A while back, I was having really intense anger, just all-consuming anger all the time. I asked a pagan or Wiccan, forgive my ignorance, friend, if there was a spell or offering, or something I could do to help get rid of this anger. She asked me if I was to pray to any god. Who would it be? And I said the Virgin Mary, because she is kind and loving, and she nurtured her baby. She was persecuted and disbelieved. She had to take refuge in a manger because no one wanted her. My friend replied, we are more like our gods than we realize, and it seemed to click for me. It helped tremendously to think of myself as sharing these divine qualities with this woman. It might be Thor, actually. From Thrimskvitha, we get a comic tale of the antics of Thor and Loki. A giant, Thrymr, steals Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, and holds a ransom in return for his marriage to the super babe Freya, a total goddess. Thor seems to have a very special relationship with his hammer, and asks Freya to just marry Thrymr, but she refuses. So instead, she dresses Thor up as herself, and Loki as her handmaiden. Thor and Loki both in drag basically, go to Trymer's exquisite hall to dine in preparation of the wedding, and frail Thor devours an entire ox, ate salmon, and so much mead. Trymer's like, where the fuck are you from where women eat and drink so much? Loki, as the handmaid, tells him, like a total thought setting up her BFF, oh she was so into you she couldn't eat for a week. And so then the hammer, Mjolnir, was brought in to consecrate the marriage, but Thor picked it up and just started blasting giants, not just the men, but the women and children, too. From there, it was basically the scene in Monty Python's Holy Grail where Sir Lancelot rescues the princess from the castle in the swamp. One time I feel like I met with Zeus. I was on acid, camping, and a massive lightning storm showed up out of nowhere, got everything in the tent into the car, including myself, and waited for it to hit. It lasted 8 hours. And was the most intense lightning I've ever seen, several strikes per second, many of them nearby. At one point, my hair stood right up on end, and maybe half a second later, a bolt hit the ground about 5 feet away, and not a regular one, but positive lightning. The thunder sounded like an explosion, the lights in the car dimmed and you could hear electricity escaping into the ground. For those who don't know, a positive strike is about 100 times the power, lasts longer and will often leave a streak of ionized air where the lightning was that will glow for a second or two after. A few people camping nearby came up to see if I was okay. Before they came up I was wondering if I had hallucinated it. But the black mark on the ground beside the car told me I didn't. Felt like Zeus saw some puny mortals tripping balls and said to his Greek god brothers, hey, wanna see something hilarious?